Hi everyone and welcome back to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel with me, Tom Campbell. Super excited to say we've got Craig back on for this week's Meet the Elite team reveal. We're going to be talking forward replacements for possibly losing Erling Haaland and looking ahead to blank game week 28. So without further ado guys, let's get right into it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and Craig, welcome back to yourself, mate. It's been a few weeks since you've been on. Looking at that graph, it looks like it's been fairly stable. How have you been getting on, mate?
It doesn't feel stable. It feels like it's going ever so slightly down. But
I was trying to be positive.
Yeah, thanks. That's very kind of you. I'm kind of going nowhere, really. It's been the story since the return from the World Cup. It's one step backwards, one step forwards, and just that dance backwards and forwards over and over again. So, and it's kind of the same this week, I think. So, yeah, it's okay. It could be worse, right?
Yeah, of course it could. Of course it could, mate. And look, we had Corbs on last week. It was a great video. People really enjoyed having him on the channel as well. And he said much the same. Like, even though he's having a really good season, he said that since the World Cup, it has been a case of hard to make gains, not kind of moving too much around that overall rank. So it's interesting to see that that's been the case for yourself as well. We're seeing right now, Craig, we've got you around about an overall rank of 151k. We're recording Sunday night, so we haven't actually updated from Sunday's fixtures, but around about 150k, Craig, at this stage of the season. How are you looking to finish? What's the kind of target for the remainder of the season?
It's a good question. I mean, like everybody else, I still, doesn't matter how many people are playing the game, 10k is still the benchmark.
Oh yeah.
But it's getting less and less likely as each of these game weeks goes past, to be completely honest with you. I mean, we're only halfway through 27.
Yeah, we are.
And there's 29 ahead, so there's plenty of chance theoretically to keep up. But anybody who's vaguely active on Twitter or Reddit or whatever it is will know that teams are looking, at least top teams are looking really similar.
They are, aren't they?
And not only are they looking really similar, the moves which people have penciled in or got in the back of their minds are also sounding remarkably familiar when I hear them. So I'm very, very much fishing around for how I can get a few differentials in from here on in to try and get that rank going in the right direction.
Now that is a great hook for the rest of the video, isn't it? So in this video, we're going to be looking at how Craig's doing so far in double game week 27. As I say, we're kind of part way through, guys. We've still got a couple of fixtures remaining in the game week. So we'll see how Craig's team shaped up for that game week, what kind of thoughts went into that before we have a look at the points accrued so far. Then we're going to talk about the plans for blank game week 28. And of course, we're also going to look further afield or further down the line, because there are so many doubles upcoming. There's going to be chips to play. We can see on screen, Craig, you've still got the free hit and the bench boost. So I want to talk to you about your plans for those chips as well. And we've also got some stats pulled together, guys, on the possibility of losing Erling Haaland from our team. And we've got some suggestions as to where you might be looking. But without further ado, let's take a little look at what Craig's team for Game Week 27 was and how it's shaping up so far. Cool. So, I mean, you've mentioned, Craig, that the teams are looking quite familiar. I've got to say it kind of is from how Corbs was as well. But talk us through your kind of thought process that went into this. You were in a position where you could roll a transfer as well. So you've got those two frees going into the blank game week 28, which we'll talk about. But in terms of the makeup of the squad, happy with it? What was the kind of thought processes that went into shaping this team together?
Yeah, I mean, this was my wildcard 2016.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm alone in looking back and thinking, oh man, double Brentford defense. What the hell was I thinking? But we're only halfway through the game week, and Henry might, Ryan might save a penalty and Henry might get an assist or something. And
he could score a header. I mean, he came close, right?
Yeah, he came really close, didn't he? But I'm happy enough with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not particularly unique. I mean, the two main choices, I suppose, or the three which I had, were the keeper rotation.
Yeah.
There's nothing in you can't see my bench there, but the other keeper is Kepa from Chelsea. And then there was the whole issue of Henry or Pinnock or me.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I'd have preferred me, but me gave me a problem which we're going to get to,
right?
In game week 30.
Okay.
Because with his extra cost, it made, if I were to spoiler alert, I am. If I was to sell Haaland and buy him back in 30, then the cost of me would make that a little bit too close.
Corb said the same, man,
So
last week as well. So that was a real thought process that all you guys sort of factored in, that 0.5, 0.6 million pounds. It becomes crucial further down the line, right? And we can see the bench there, Craig, on screen. We've got Kepa on your bench with the Arsenal boys, Odegaard and Gabriel. I'm sure you've chuffed a bits with Gabriel's 14-pointer and Botman, who I think if Botman had scored that goal at the end, I'm not sure you would be on the video tonight, right?
I'd have been unhappy. I did actually. There was a moment last week where I was considering bench boosting at 27.
Yeah.
Compared to 29, and I mean, especially if Botman's last minute or very close to the end chance had gone in, then that would have been one hell of a bench boost for somebody. But no, I'm sticking with 29, and the whole thing is set up for 29. So there was Henry, there was Raya, and then the last one was which of the Brighton mids to go for.
Yeah. And captain as well.
Yeah, I mean, like yourself. Well, actually, you've gone one better, but I captained McAllister, and it wasn't rocket science. I really couldn't put, in my mind at least, a whole lot of expected points between McAllister, March, and Tony.
No.
I mean, maybe 1 point here or there, and so then it came down to ownership, and McAllister's ownership is way lower than March, and especially Tony. So it was like, well, if there's not a great deal between them, I'm more than happy to put my chips on the least owned player and hope for a decent rise in rank. So far so good with that one. I've been even happier if March had been given that goal, but brutal. No, it's fine. It's completely fine so far. So I feel comfortable with that choice. I only wish you had done it last week as well. But anyway, there you go. So,
and I mean there was talk, wasn't there, about Odegaard being poorly, wasn't there? So it lay question marks over whether or not to use the bench boost chip and stuff, and I get it. And I left him out of my team for what it's worth and put him on the bench as well. So can't feel too bad about that. And look, I mean, it's set up tremendously, isn't it? And we do, like I said, this story's not yet finished, is it? We do have the fixtures remaining midweek, Craig, to see whether or not the Brentford and the Brighton boys can come through.
I've got 6 players left.
Yeah, exactly. So
six players left. So it's a long way from done. So
yeah. Cool.
I'm pretty relaxed. I mean, it's showing 151. I think anybody who's watching this knows that this is being filmed after the Arsenal game, and the Arsenal guys who were on my bench, as opposed to the one sucker who's in my team, did deliver some pretty good points returns. So my rank will not be 151. I'm quite certain by the time the evening's out.
No, I wasn't going to belabor that point, but you are right, of course. But I mean, what a team they are. It's become apparent now that it's just a case of them being so effective and so many FPL assets. So you and I have talked about to have the treble up, it being a longer term strategy. We've had that in our minds for weeks and months now in terms of how good they are, and those price points are so attractive, aren't they? So that's going to, I'm sure, remain the case, but we will see whether or not that's still going to play into the use of that free hit chip that you've talked to me about. Spoiler alert, that might be some free hit chat in relation to double game week 29. But before we get to that, we need to get to blank game week 28, which is upcoming. So let's have a little look at how you're shaping up for that blank game week, Craig, and then talk to me about the transfers that you've got planned, because you've rolled the transfers, so you're going to be rocking into that week with 2 frees. So let's have a little look at how you're intending to start that game week. Cool. So if you were to have no free transfers and not use any, Craig, you're set up pretty well anyway off the back of that wild card a couple of game weeks ago. With this formation here, obviously you've got players blanking, as every team, I'm sure, or the vast majority will do. 2 frees though. How are you going to be looking to use them, mate? If you can say the forward chat, we'll say for the next slide, because we'll go into some details then. But what are your kind of thought processes around how to use those 2 frees, and any plans for a point hit alongside that?
Any plans for what, sir?
A point hit alongside that, or will you just be using the two frees?
No, there's no chance of a hit.
Nope.
There's one obvious transfer, and we're going to get to that. But having said that, I have another idea fermenting.
Okay.
In my head.
Yeah.
But it's all about not just 28, but 29,
sure.
and what comes after. Okay. So I'd originally planned conversely, thinking ahead to 29 here, to get shot of Gabriel, who you can't see, but he's on my bench, or Henry in 29, because I'm not, especially after this week, I'm not hugely enthusiastic about their about their chances for clean sheets in 29 and thereafter.
Okay,
and on top of that, there's also the, I mean, when I made the wild card in 26, I had a plan all the way through to 34.
Right.
About who I might, bring in, take out, when would I play my chips, etc.
Yeah.
But those plans are always tentative and can always change and what have you. So I've already started, and if that means I have to take a hit to redress the balance, then so be it. But I have a few ideas about 29 and onwards, which could already have an effect on 28. One of them was already from last week. I was thinking, wow, Chilwell's looking like he's back, and
he did look good in the cup, right? And then in Europe, didn't he went and scoring that goal at Leicester.
And then he went and bloody well scored. And then he scored yesterday, which really upset me, because then everyone starts jumping on it.
Did you think that they look good defensively though, Craig? I'm interested in your take on Chelsea as a defensive unit. Like, I'm not saying Chilwell's not a great pick. I think he is, but match of the day highlights weren't plentiful. But they didn't. To me, they didn't look super secure.
No, I've only seen highlights.
Yeah,
to be
likewise.
fair. But no, they didn't look secure. But you're not buying Chilwell for the 6 points.
Indeed.
Clean sheets. You're buying Chilwell because of the attacking threat.
Sure.
I mean, it wasn't Tuchel-esque in terms of how far up he was, but it was a nice number. It was a good heat map. Looks, he's passing the eye test. So, and his ownership is rock bottom.
Yeah.
So that was an option there to say, well, let's bring him in for 28 already.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, well, who do you bring him in for?
Yeah.
And the only defender who I've got who's not playing in 28 is Dunk.
Yeah, we can see on screen.
Has a nice double.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he has a nice double in 29. So what do you do about that? You probably want three Brighton players for the double in 29, and they probably double in 31, and have another one down the line in 34. So then, I mean, like everyone else, I've been having this dilemma about, okay, who should you have from Mitoma, March, and McAllister? And right now I have McAllister and March. Yeah. But if I were to lose Dunk and get Chilwell in, it opens up the option of bringing in Mitoma in 29.
Okay.
So going for the triumvirate Brighton midfield setup in 29, which the combination of those three is quite a differential. Yeah. I mean, I suspect the chances of them all banging in the same game week are pretty slim, but nonetheless, as an attacking unit, Brighton are about as good as it is right now.
Sure are, yeah.
So that's one option.
Yeah. I like it.
But it will require me to have a steaming hot cup of something or other before I go for it. So
yeah. I like it because you know what?
That's the risky one that I'm thinking of. The safer one, or the more obvious one, which I'm thinking of, is Haaland out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And when I was making my wild card in 26, I was flip-flopping between, do I just take him out from the start in 26 and go with Watkins and save myself a transfer down the line?
Yeah.
Watkins or anybody else for that matter who could be the candidate. Or do I keep him in for 26 and 27 and then move him on for the blank? And I chose to move him on for the blank. I wasn't brave enough, basically.
No.
I don't think it would have made a huge difference points-wise, but it would have saved me a free transfer.
It would, but it would have been a tough watch, that Palace game. Yeah, the Palace game with how well that... I mean, Man City played well in that game and could have scored a few more, couldn't they? So it would have been a difficult watch, that, to be fair. Yeah. To be fair, Craig. I mean, it was interesting. Corbs and I talked last week about the possibility of that three midfielder setup for Brighton as well. So it's clearly something that's on people's minds. Well, reminder of Brighton's fixtures, guys, into the blank, as we can see in blank game week 28. But looking further down the line, we've got double game week 29. They've got Brentford at home and then Bournemouth away. There's a possibility of a double in game week 30 as well, for them as well. And like you say,
Newcastle.
That's right. Chelsea and Newcastle potentially, and like you say, the double or possibly double in 34 as well. So they're clearly here to stay in terms of FPL assets. So getting them in seems to be.
Yeah, we're not going to be selling them.
No. No, we're not.
I really can't imagine the circumstances under which we'd sell them before those doubles are out of the way. It would just be crazy. The same goes for Newcastle, So,
yeah, it makes sense to me. And having watched them, it does seem to me that they said, I mean, they're such a fun team and super exciting to watch, and lots of great FPL options. But to me, it seems more fun, certainly, to have the attacking options like you've discussed there. I think there's been case for a Stupinian at the back as well. But interesting to see how that one plays out, Craig. And it's nice to see how you've set yourself up really clever to be rocking into the blank with 2 frees to see how the week goes and make your plans, and you'll be set really fair for what we expect to be a pretty low scoring game week, would you say? Game week 28?
Yeah, well, I mean, all the models seem to back up. If you look at the fixture sheet, you're not seeing goals jumping out the page there, and the predictive models seem to agree as well. So I'm not expecting fireworks in 28, which is also why I had this idea of how to bring in an 11th player with my final free transfer, but I certainly wouldn't take a hit.
No.
I can't imagine how a hit would be paying off in 28.
No, I don't think it would.
At least not when you have 2 free transfers and 9 starters.
Sure, so 9 starters too. Yeah, to hit would be, like I say, if there was a standout captain that you weren't getting and could only get to by making that, fair enough, that's a different conversation, but that's not the case, is it? So no, it makes total sense to use the 2 frees and rock in with the 11. That's cool. In terms of for the viewers, Craig, if they've not been sort of prepped and so well, maybe used their chips beforehand, just mention we're expecting, based on the model projections, etc., comparatively low score. How many players would you be comfortable starting before you say, do you know what, I'm going to have to use a precious free hit chip instead to get my way through this bank game week? Are we talking 4 or 5, or does it need to be higher than that in terms of number of starters?
I think you have to compare. You have to find one of the predictive model, or one of the sheets which shows you how 32 will look.
Okay.
And I would be looking at, if I was to rock up with what I've got in 28, how would that compare to how many I'll be playing in 32?
Yeah.
Because it's not an abstract comparison. You have to compare it to what the other possibility is.
Sure.
But if you haven't got a free hit, then it's not a high-scoring week in which I'd be feeling like I wanted to use transfers, unless, and that's the same thing every single time, I'd be interested in using a hit. It's always easier in a blank game week, but still, if you bring a hit for somebody who plays in 28 and doubles in 29, and this eventuality I haven't actually looked into, but of course, if you haven't got a free hit, then is there anybody who plays in 28, plays in 29 and 32? That's the kind of base covering you'd have to do, but I'm afraid I haven't given that.
Yeah, that's a sort of Newcastle type player, which you've got well covered there. You've got, the Forest away match, a double of Man United and West Ham in 29, and then a home game against Spurs in 32. That might not be the optimal, team that I've just, but there are teams that befit that criteria. That's cool, great. So that's the sort of thing you'd be looking at, because I'm just conscious for some of the guys watching, they will have used chips in already, so their situations and people's plans will be really team specific, as we know. So you're looking at 2 frees being used then. So we've talked about the possibility of a Brighton treble further down the line, but you've also mentioned, and we've talked in broad strokes, haven't we, about losing Erling Haaland. I can't believe it. It's finally come to the stage of the season where we're talking about losing Erling Haaland. So obviously, there's a case to be made for that, which we'll get into, guys. So let's take a look at some of the options that you might be considering to replace the Norwegian striker with. Okay, cool. So we pulled these stats together using the data on fantasyfootballfix.com, which everyone, I'm sure, can go over and take a little look at. We've gone for Iheanacho, Ollie Watkins, and Danny Ings, a West Ham player, features on one of my videos. It's only taken, 28 game weeks to get to, but there we go. But we said off camera there might be another player. So, Craig, talk to us in broad strokes about why it makes sense to lose Erling Haaland for your team or people in a similar situation, because people might be thinking, this is crazy, this guy's got, on 28 goals or whatever it is for the Premier League. What's the case to be made for losing Erling Haaland?
It's quite simple, really. He doesn't play in 28. He has a single in 29.
Indeed.
Compared to plenty of players who've got a double in 29. Come game week 30, however, he's very, very much back on the radar. Now, most people will have quite a lot of money invested in Haaland, insofar as, you know, the selling price will be significantly higher than what they bought him for. But so what? I mean, this season, money is nothing. There's just value from left to right, top to bottom, all over the game. So I think I will probably lose 0.4.
Okay.
But if I buy him back in 30, it will probably be 0.4 more than involve a 0.4 loss. I couldn't care less. I just want the points, and the money has no effect this year whatsoever. At least from unless you somehow manage to, you know, lose money on the game. I really can't see how that would affect you hugely, and there are nearly in every single position options to shuffle, to pack, to raise a few quid here and there, which would make it possible. So for me, it's purely and simply about the points.
Yeah, makes total sense, man.
Over those 2 game weeks, you know, there were players who've got good games and more games. So
it's a loan, right? It's not like it's a farewell. You're expecting him to come back to the party in a couple of games time, right? It's not like a done deal. Erling Haaland's going to be back in Craig's team soon.
I really can't imagine. Well, he'd have to be injured for him not to come back. Because he's the standout captain in 30. I'm pretty sure he will be my captain in 31, although maybe Salah comes in. 32, quite possibly a free hit. 34, they have a double almost certainly. And then again, he would probably be my captain there. So I want him back pretty soon, but there's just 2 weeks, essentially 3 weeks for many teams, or 3 get, you know, 1 regular week and 1 double game week, where I don't see him getting close to some of the other options, and I'm not sure of transfers. So for me, it's just it's going to cost me a few quid, but I don't care.
Money's not a problem. We saw on the first slide with the money that you've got in your bank, and you and I and the other elite managers I've had on the show have talked pretty much all season about the price points at the beginning of the campaign, basically meaning that it's not nearly so much of a factor as it would be or has been in other seasons. So just a reminder then, guys, for Man City, blank game week in game week 28, no fixture. The single game week is against Liverpool, home game against Liverpool, who are chalk and cheese, aren't they? They can beat Man United 7-0 and they can lose to the Cherries. So who knows what's going on there. 30 though, this is when they come back. That's that Southampton game that you're referring to in game week 30, and then home to Leicester. So I understand it's more of a short-term plan. So in terms of the options you've been looking at, Craig, we've pulled together some information on Iheanacho, Watkins and Ings, and it highlighted in green there. You can see the kind of the standouts there. You and I were talking off camera, though. There might be someone else that you're interested in. Who's that there, mate?
Well, there is. I mean, originally, back when I was wildcarding in 26, I had the hots for, I should rephrase that. I was giving João Felix the more than the once over, thinking that if somebody plays in 28, decent double in 29, okay fixtures thereafter, I'll have some of that. And then he gets yanked at half-time in the last game. He passes the. He's not a bad-looking player, but it just doesn't seem to be falling into a place. But at the same time, Havertz is coming onto the radar and quite. Yeah, he looked good, and Potter seems to think he's good, and Potter's talking him up, and that makes me think his minutes are pretty secure as well. So that's. But his numbers still aren't great, but it's just the fact that those minutes and the fact that Potter's blowing smoke up his arse makes me think that he could be an option.
Penalties as well, right, Craig? I think he's talked about the fact that it's going to be shared between him and Reece James, with Havertz being the first option. Yeah,
exactly. So there were a few things in his favour, but when I wildcarded, the most likely candidate was Watkins. The problem with Watkins, there's no problem with Watkins. The problem in the back of my head is it's his old strike partner, Ings, who's posting some really unfortunately good numbers. And I'd really rather not, no offence, mate, have a West Ham striker in my team. But those numbers, I keep looking at them and it's like, I mean, Watkins in itself, I'm sure every man and his dog's going to be buying Watkins this week, so his ownership will skyrocket. Yeah. But I don't think many are buying Ings,
No,
and I
and
think
Ings would
Ings'
be more.
numbers are just
Ings is more of a plan for the double game week in 29, right? With a couple of
absolutely,
home
yeah. So
fixtures because no game in 28, but the home game. The double home game weeks, I mean, it's terrible. It's such a bad weekend for West Ham. I know this is not fantasy football, but yeah, not a lot could. I mean, we could have got beat by Villa, but it really was pretty bad. So that home game against Southampton, the home game against Newcastle in double game week 29 is monumental for their season. So it'll be interesting to see who if anyone steps up. But
yeah,
yeah, I can understand. I suspect Watkins will be the go-to guy. Looking at the stats we're looking at on screen, Craig, is that who you
yeah.
think you're probably going to be opting for, or do you?
I think it
Yeah,
is also because I feel I would feel comfortable playing. I mean, he scored what 4 in the last
yeah, he
5
has, yeah.
or 5 in the last 6 or whatever it is now. I would feel comfortable with him being in my team going forwards. I mean, just so we're completely clear, the plan would be to move Haaland on to Watkins, and then in 30 to move Tony on to Haaland.
Right. Okay, I see.
And there's all sorts of reasons for that. I mean, it's partly because of the fear, to put it simply, of A, there's probably some yellow card trouble coming. B, there's some FA trouble coming.
It's just trouble coming.
So there's just trouble coming, and I could do without that. So he can do one once his purpose is served in 29. Watkins, I would feel comfortable with playing him every week.
Yeah.
It's a low ceiling, but it's a pretty consistent ceiling. So
I like that.
fine, I'll take your 6 points and run. Thanks very much. That's
the
whereas Ings, you got no idea. I don't. Yeah, but having said that, I was really surprised when I saw his numbers, and I was like, oh god, I'm gonna have to consider.
Well, this is the thing. People have been crying as a Hammer. They've been crying out for him to get more minutes, and obviously he's got trouble with his knees, as we know. But when he's on the pitch, he's a threat. Just a reminder though of the Villa fixtures, guys, that you might be interested in. So a home match against Bournemouth in blank game week 28 looks pretty appealing, and then a double game week in double game week 29. 2 away matches there of Chelsea and Leicester. But like Craig says, if you were looking to keep this guy in the team longer term, then you're looking at home games against Forest and Newcastle before away matches at Brentford, followed by Fulham in 34, home match against Fulham in 33, excuse me. So a nice run for him, great price point, and like you say, he's been in good form. So I suspect he'll be in a lot of people's teams, right, when we hit game week 28 for sure. Yeah, interesting one. So look, gun to your head, Craig. If you had to make your transfers now, knowing what you know today, what 2 frees are you making for game week 28?
Well, certainly Haaland to Watkins. I think I'd be quite surprised if I don't, succumb to my sensibilities and just go for Watkins.
Yeah, I understand.
And if there is another one, it would be Dunk for Ben Chilwell.
Yeah. Like it.
I feel pretty confident, unless there's some injuries which crop up during the second half of the league. Yeah. But those will be the 2. If I go for that, then it starts getting really interesting, actually, because it's all very well talking about who do you bring in, but then it's about who do you lose.
Yeah.
And on that subject there, then I mean, I've just been. I watched the Arsenal game tonight or this afternoon. I had like most people, I suppose, Saka in my team, and I got, Ødegaard was on my bench, and Gabriel. I wouldn't have played Gabriel, so I'm not worried about that. But the plan was in 29 to move Ødegaard on for Bruno Fernandes. Why Ødegaard? Why is it Saka I should be thinking out? I was just looking at the XFPL numbers for Saka for the last 4. And on the one hand, he's behind Ødegaard, he's behind Martinelli, he's quite significantly behind the 2 of them for the last 4. But then at the same time, once you zoom out from just looking at Arsenal to looking at all midfielders, then he's still in the top 10. So it's just it's just a question of rolling the dice. So I'm having a slight suspicion. I'm not suspicion. I'm just wondering whether I need to. I suspect that my rank at the end of this week will be something around that, which is on the screen, 151, which, it's fine, but I want to move it. If I want to move it, I have to shake things up a little bit here and there with low risk moves. And I wonder if Saka rather than Ødegaard, or both of them going.
I'll be fascinated to see how it goes, man. Definitely.
It's what I'm playing with. I mean, Gabriel would become Shaw, quite possibly. because Arsenal fixtures aren't great
No, they're not.
after the double. Well, they don't have a double, but B, they're not great after then. They don't double. Did they double in 34? I'm thinking they don't.
They
in my
potentially no, they don't. They won not double in game double game week 34.
Right,
They've got
so
a
they
home
don't
match
double
against
in
Chelsea
34
then.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have, as
So, I mean,
Odegaard said, they have 11 cup finals, right? And they're playing so well. And you and I have talked for weeks about how good they are. So it's going to be hard to jettison these guys in that respect, right? To actually lose the players who are playing so well. Particularly as I know you and I talked about your fondness for Odegaard previously, Craig, and what a player he is, you know. So the fact that you're now considering Saka instead doesn't surprise me based on how well he's been playing for sure.
but it's also the fixtures which make it complicated, because can you really sell? I mean, leaving aside which triple up of Brighton you've got, are you going to sell them when they've got a potential double in 31 and a potential double in 34? No, they're not going to do it. Newcastle, the same applies. They've got a double in 31, they've got a double in 34. No, so you're not going to sell those. Rashford, doubles in 29, doubles in 34. No, he's going nowhere either. Haaland, back in captaincy option from 30 and 34. So he's great. There are just so few spaces left.
It's a hard life, mate. It's a hard life having such a good team. Yeah. I'm only kidding. So look, we've talked about game week 28. I'm just going to bring the team up real quick again, Craig, just so that people can refamiliarise themselves with how you're going to be rocking it in. So there we go. So the back four of Gabriel, Henry, Trippier and Botman, you're thinking that you might change those dunk to Chilwell, Saka and Odegaard in that midfield with Kane and Tony and Ollie Watkins will be how you're looking. But in terms of game week 29, Craig, what's the chip plan? I know this is a game week 28 video, so we won't talk about it too long, but just in terms of the chip strategy for game week 29.
That's easy. So
bench boost all the way. We're all in. It's
no brainer. Yeah. I mean, it would take some injuries to deal with that.
It's going to look so pretty.
It would take quite a lot of injuries. I would have no problem taking hits to get. You know, if we're sitting on a Friday afternoon and the press conferences have been held and there's just complete cataclysmic news all over the place, and I've got 3 players injured, fine, break out the hit hammer. Because the main issue is 34 doesn't look fantastic.
Doesn't look that fun, does it? Doesn't look that fun.
No. 37. Yeah. You know, at the tail end of the season, it's an awful time to be playing. Well, you can get really lucky, but you can have an absolute horror show, and I'd rather avoid that. So I'd rather spend 4 or 8 points getting my bench boost ready for 29 properly. Yeah. But I mean, hopefully I won't have to. But
it doesn't look like you'll have to. Like you say, something. Sorry to cut across you, but something would have to go pretty wrong for you to have to do that. So it looks set. So you're looking at a big bench boost being used in 29. So who knows? That 151k could be a thing of the past, man. You could be into that 5-figure territory before you know it, and chasing down that top 10k. And I will drink to that, sir. So look, any other final thoughts, mate, before we wrap things up? Anything that you wanted to cover in relation to blank game week 28 or beyond?
28, I think, is nothing to worry about hugely. Cool. I mean, if you're set up for it, great. Even if you're not, it's a low ceiling game week. Don't sweat. Get 7 or 8 out and just move on and focus upon 29, which is hugely more interesting and hugely more valuable. So I don't think 28 is in itself the issue. It's about looking ahead a little bit. I mean, and the other thing is, I mean, I guess I'm not the only person who's around 151 or worse this season, and there's still loads of time to make it up. But I think that, I mean, like I had this week with, you know, McAllister or March or Tony, I think it's a good time of the year to be just looking at the numbers. You know, you can find them all on the Fix app or on the Fix website of what the ownership statistics are for a player, because if you're really having a 50-50 call, this is the time to start going with the lower owned player if you want to make up space. I mean, if you want to make up ground. I mean, at least that's how I look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, points are points. The best differential is being consistent every week, but at the same time, you've got to find a little bit here and there to make up ground, especially this season. I think I feel like I'm in mud for the last 2 months. So also it just makes it a wee bit more fun, right? Just to I mean, McAllister, I find just a lovely captain.
No, I do
To
too.
have this.
I do too. And I think that's really good advice to end the video on, Craig. Actually, the ownership stats, fantasyfootballfix.com's got loads of different ways you can slice that in terms of effective ownership, in terms of, you know, players near your rank, in terms of overall rank 10, top 10k, top 100k, etc. You can filter that data to interrogate those ownership stats if you want to, and it's a really nice way of doing it to make sure that the players that you pick, when they score those goals and get those points, that they're actually going to make a real difference to you in your overall rank. Mate, it's been absolutely awesome to talk to you again. It's always so interesting to hear your thoughts. You're set up beautifully for the blank. I'm sure the bench boost is going to go swimmingly as well. So look, thanks ever so much for being on the video. Guys, do please smash a like on the video on your way out. Do please leave a comment down below for Craig. I'm sure he'll get back to you in the week. And do please subscribe to the channel and to fantasyfootballfix.com as well. And I'll see you all next week. Have a very, 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 very good week. Take care. Bye-bye.